Hello.
Welcome to Salem, the podcast.
We are your hosts and favorite Salem tour guides.
My name is Sarah Black.
And I'm Jeffrey Lilley. Thanks for joining us.
Today, we are going to be talking about Bewitched, the TV show.
I'm not going to sing the song. You do that better than me.
Aw, thank you. Please do it by the end of this year. By the end of season 1, we're going to get Jeffrey to sing the Bewitched theme song.
Dun, dun. No, okay, that's it.
Yep.
Just cut that out.
That's all you're giving me.
Done.
All right. So when we say Bewitched, we don't mean like the 2005 film with Nicole Kidman and Will Ferrell. We're going back a few more decades. We're talking about the original.
Back in the 70s.
Yeah.
The good stuff.
Yeah. Did you watch it when?
80s, 90s, Nick at Night, TV Land, all that stuff. I definitely watched enough of it to know what it was, who the characters were. That opening scene is iconic. That music is iconic. I think, I don't want to say everyone, but I think everyone knows that.
It definitely brings back some good memories. Mom would throw it on like before school in the mornings. And fun fact, my best friend Samantha, she's actually named after the Samantha.
That's cute.
As I'm sure a lot of 90s babies and 80s babies.
Probably were.
And probably 70s babies were.
70, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I guess that's common, naming your kid after some, popular TV show. Let's not bring up Game of Thrones.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah, all the people that named their children Khaleesi
it's
or Daenerys.
Sort of the same thing.
Oops.
Yeah. So
Fire and blood.
with the TV show though, it's sort of a popular landmark or idea here in Salem. Right? Because it's Salem, Bewitched. There's all sorts of things in the city named Bewitched.
I work for Bewitched Tours, not named after the show, but we operate out of Bewitched in Salem. It's a storefront right off of Essex Street, and right in the window is a big graphic of Samantha.
Right.
And if you go just a block further down Essex Street, you're going to run into the 9-foot bronze statue of her as well.
Which is probably one of the most iconic landmarks today in Salem.
I like to refer to her as the most famous selfie partner.
Yeah.
If you go to her anytime in October, you're bound to see a line of people waiting to take a picture with her.
And it's right in what we call Lappin Park. So there's a sort of outside little park area. That's where our big Christmas tree is. Mm-hmm. And it's right in the corner of Washington and Essex Street. It's literally right in the heart of downtown Salem.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite intersections. You got so much going on there. And you go just a block up, you've got the Witch House, Rockefeller's right across the street where the old church used to be. And if you come during festive season, there's always a lot of things going on.
Did you know, little known fact, that where the Samantha statue stands today would have been in Judge Hathorn's front yard?
I did know that.
Yes.
I stopped there on my tours, and I do include that. Right where that tree is next to.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's one of my favorite things. There's a big sort of, middle finger to the. You're like, haha, now you have a witch, the most infamous, popular, right there. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Roll in your grave.
Yep, I love it.
So the TV show Bewitched, we watched as we're talking about it. We sat down and went back and we watched what's famously known as
the Salem Saga episodes. So it was pretty fun. Neither of us, we'd seen episodes here and there, but neither of us had sat down and watched the Salem episodes. And we were so excited.
So when you say pretty fun, I would say it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I'm kicking myself
so much
for
fun.
Waiting so long to watch them.
Right? You're like, oh yeah, there's Bewitched. I didn't know. We had so much fun. It was well acted, well scripted,
well written,
funny. Yeah. It was
special effects were great.
Yeah, the night we just sat there and sat down with some drink, it was a lot of fun.
So the saga itself is we were trying to argue over how many episodes
6,
it technically
7,
encompasses, but yeah, it's between 6 and 8. It starts in season 7. The first 2 episodes, they're only talking about going to Salem. So they're called To Go or Not to Go, and Salem, Here We Come.
So literally, are we going to Salem? Yeah, we're going to Salem.
And it's all under the premise of there is a witches' council here in town.
Ooh, dun dun dun.
Darren actually isn't allowed to go at first. They're able to convince the Empress to let him attend.
Which, like, he's not even attending. Like, can I bring my husband to stay in the hotel while and they're like, no, you can't.
Nope. No mortals.
Yeah, no mortals. But they're just visiting Salem, which is going, again, that goes into the sort of plot line of the show.
Right. I think my favorite part about those episodes, he's talking to his boss and he's like, yeah, I think Samantha and I, we need to get away. We need to take a trip.
A little vacation.
And his boss says, oh, well, I need you to do this work. Oh, well, I know. We've got plenty of offices around the world. I can send you to Paris, to Rome.
Sounds wonderful.
And he says, oh, we're actually thinking Salem, Massachusetts.
So to add insult to injury, the show takes place in Westport, Connecticut. So it's maybe a 4-hour drive if you hit some traffic in Connecticut, which you will. But that's it. So he's telling his boss, we need to go on this big vacation. His boss is like, you can go to Europe, travel the world. And he's like, well,
we're going to go up to Massachusetts. And Salem wasn't even that hot of a spot back then.
It is now.
Well, that's the thing. He's like, wait a minute, Salem, Massachusetts? I just offered you Rome, Paris. You want to go to Salem, Massachusetts?
Today, people come from those places. Well, maybe not today, but they used to.
Yeah, they used to, which is hilarious. People will travel from Paris and Rome to come to Salem.
And they also travel from Connecticut, from New York. We get a ton of visitors from New Jersey. So it's not outside of the realm of what people do today, which is also pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Going up the coast.
Yeah. So the first episode that is sort of the Salem Saga, like the actual, is called the Salem Saga.
Yeah, episode 3. And it's funny, they're in Connecticut, and for some reason they still decide to fly up.
Yeah, so they're going to drive from Westport into the city, maybe LaGuardia or where not, and then fly up to Boston to then drive into Salem.
I think it was all for the purpose of making the jokes about witches flying.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. They're like, we can just fly. Well, we can't fly. We have Darren, and then we have the bags, and etc.
So one of the best parts about this episode on their way up there, and Dora, who's Samantha's mother, of course, doesn't want to fly on a plane, because what witch would fly on a plane?
No. How? No.
So no. During the journey, Samantha looks out and sees her mother on the wing, just flying,
just hanging out, just chilling.
Arms waving in the breeze.
It's not like they're going like a few hundred miles an hour.
Happy as can be.
Yeah.
And all I could think of during that moment. Have you seen Bridesmaids?
I have not.
What?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. What?
I know. Okay. We'll get around to it.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Okay, well, in Bridesmaids, there's this moment that they're going, so it's basically the premise is best friends getting married, and she's asked to be the maid of honor. They plan a Vegas bachelorette party. So they're on the plane. The friend's name is Annie. She's not a fan of flying. She's super, super nervous. She's also stuck in coach while everyone else is in first class.
Oh.
And the kind of not so... likable character, Helen. She's the new best friend. She's trying to take over the life and, all the wedding festivities. She offers to help her out, gives her a muscle relaxer, tells her to wash it down with some vodka.
Like you do.
Like you do. She ends up looking outside and thinks that she sees a woman on the wing. And I was like, oh my God, this is actually happening in Bewitched. Like, did the writers take that? Hilarious.
So you think that that scene in Bridesmaids was inspired?
It possibly could have.
Well,
because then it goes on. She gets on the intercom and she's like, "There's a woman on the plane, on the wing. She's in colonial clothing and she's churning butter."
Oh, it's totally. I mean, Andorra wasn't.
She wasn't in colonial clothing
or churning butter, but that's. I would say that's definitely inspired by that. Also, because once that sort of scene towards the end. The woman who sees Andorra on a plane takes a pill.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She and she asks the stewardess for something to wash it down with.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Yeah, there's a chick in the plane that also sees Andorra and also sees Samantha join her out there.
Yes,
Samantha blinks out onto it with her and she's like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. And she pops a Xanax.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I like that.
I got a kick out of it.
So they land in Logan. They get a car and they head up towards Salem. And they drive right in the city, and the first thing that they see is this sign with a witch on it. And it's very crone.
Yeah,
looking.
stereotypical old hag.
The nose and the whatnot. I know some witches like that in the city.
Don't say that.
Okay, well, street performer.
Yeah. Oh, you mean like Bora?
Yes.
I thought you were like insulting someone.
No, like the green witch on the street with the big crooked nose.
Yes, it very much looked like Bora. But Samantha didn't like that representation of witch. She thought it was outdated. She thought it was insulting.
And she's right.
So she twinkles her little nose.
Her little nose with the
and poof. She replaces it with herself.
Yeah, it's basically just like a picture of her, blonde hair and everything. And then from there, they do a little drive.
Yeah, we finally get to see some of the sights.
Yeah, and they stop in front of the witch house.
Of course.
Because you have to.
So you got to remember, this is filming back in 1970. There is no witch museum.
Yeah.
There's so few landmarks that we know today as modern Salem. But a couple that they do hit is, of course, the witch house and then Hawthorne statue.
So they drive up Hawthorne Boulevard. And for those of you who are familiar, they're sort of coming from the waterfront area up towards the hotel, and you're looking at the car as though you're looking down Hawthorne Boulevard. So on the left, you see a Hawthorne statue, and I think in the background there's this big Citgo sign, which I think is where the parking garage is today, and then it continues up passing the Hawthorne Hotel, and there we go.
What I was super bummed out, though, is they didn't use the actual Salem Commons.
No.
So we figured out pretty quickly. They're standing by this park. If you've been to Salem, you know it's this big meeting space. It's been around since the founding of Salem, pretty much. There's this nice iron fence that goes around it. A lot of trees, pathways. It's kind of a cornerstone of the city.
Yeah. And in Bewitched, it looks where they're standing looks very similar to the Common. And we're looking at it going, is that
the Common?
Yeah.
Is that what it looked like?
50 years ago, and, some trees could have changed and this and that. And then we noticed a little detail that made us go, no.
There were mountains in the background. It's like, oh, no, this is so not, no.
No mountains.
No mountains in Salem.
So they did seem to use a lot of locations in and around Salem, but a lot of green screening of those locations as well.
Yeah, so we're not sure if that was due to scheduling issues, maybe weather.
Traffic,
yeah.
I'm thinking.
Because there's even moments where Darren and his boss are green screened in front of the witch house, is it?
And the Roger Conant statue.
And the Roger Conant statue.
And they mention Roger Conant. There's the statue, but they're literally just green screened in front of it.
But it's not like the actors weren't there.
Yeah, they were here.
They even use a false Hawthorne Hotel at some points, even though the actors were staying there when they visited for filming.
And they filmed one scene in the hotel that we noticed as well.
Yeah, so it's very weird. And Roger Conant, just to be clear, because I don't think we mentioned him in any episodes yet, he's basically regarded as the founder of Salem.
1626, big giant statue in front of the witch museum.
He's got a hat and a cape, often mistaken for a witch.
Not a witch.
Not a
He's
witch.
Founder of Salem. I know the location is a little deceiving, but it is one of those iconic Salem things, and they were filming right there. The episode continues. They're in Salem. They're going to start their vacation. First thing they're going to do, they're going to go see the sights, and where else do you go but
the House of Seven Gables.
Of course.
Still a staple here in town. It was very exciting to see. And they actually so you see the outside of the building, and then they go in for a tour. And I'm sure it really hasn't changed much.
I was going to say, I think the sign that's outside might be the same.
The same sign.
Or they've replaced it with the exact same one. But I was looking and I was like,
keeping things authentic.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. So that's where the episode is sort of coming to a close with this. But then we get a little bit of magic.
So things start happening. You can't escape to Salem without
encountering
something.
A magical enchanted bed warmer.
So this bed warmer starts while she's in the House of Seven Gables. This antique bed warmer starts coming off the wall and following her around.
It's kind of getting a little cheeky.
Get a little handsy.
Yeah.
Without hands.
Yeah. Her backside.
Yes.
Is getting a little smack. Or 5, I was going to say.
Yeah, it would not leave her alone.
No. So then she sort of discovers. I don't know.
That something is trapped within this bed warmer and decides to help. Yeah, she takes...
She just steals an artifact from the House of Seven Gables. Just PSA for the day. Don't steal.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Bad witch. No stealing. Bad witch. Then they bring it back to the hotel.
To try to figure out how to turn him back.
Yeah.
And then it closes.
That's the episode, the end of the episode. And it's sort of a what happens next when Samantha's stolen the bed warmer.
So, of course, the next episode is called Samantha's Hot Bed Warmer. And Jeff here has a very big issue with transfiguring people into objects.
I think everyone should have an issue with transfiguring a human into an inanimate object and leaving them for 300 years. I think that's a bit of an
overstep.
Yeah. So
someone's rights.
Do we not have the rights? Do witches not have the same rights that mortals do? I mean, like in the scope of things, Endora is about 4,000 years old. So I guess 300 years isn't like that long of a time.
It's like a timeout.
But no one seemed to care.
No.
She goes to the witches' council and is like, Mom, I have this magical bedpan. Or
bed warmer.
Bed warmer, which doesn't make it any better. Because, by the way, this bed warmer was quasi-sentient.
It was observing as it was being pushed into people's beds. Yeah.
He's spending some quality alone time. Like, let's warm up the bed.
Totally a foot guy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, more than likely. Okay. So and here's where it gets weird. I am still confused by the concept of magic in Bewitched. It would seem as though, and this comes up a few times, only the caster of the spell has control over the spell.
Yes.
So no one can
reverse someone else's spell.
Right. So he is a bed warmer until the caster of the spell unbed warmers him, transfigures him back into a person. And then they also have to use or utilize the same spell that they utilized before. So they discover who was it, and it was none other than Samantha's
cousin,
eccentric cousin, who did this. Of course, coincidentally, it's the eccentric cousin. So they ask her to go back in time to go and see the spell that she cast, and she comes back. She's like, "Oh, I remember what it is." Okay, it was weird. It was weird. And they turn him back into a person. But he has memories, right?
Mm-hmm. He doesn't seem too bothered either.
No.
He was totally fine with his little...
If I'd been trapped as a bed warmer for like a month, not to mention 300 years, I'd be like, how dare you? No consequences. No being held accountable for your actions of trapping someone as an inanimate object for centuries. That's all cool. Whatever. But yeah, he's a little weird. He's still a little handsy. Mm-hmm. But that's where it gets a little strange because he's conscious. He remembers the things that had happened to him as a bedpan, the suffering, the torn. I don't know. I'm getting.
Yeah, he's coming out with a lot less trauma than I would assume someone would come out with.
But everything's fine. Cool. It turns out that they're in court and they bring him in and they convince the proprietors, I don't know.
The people that run the House of Seven Gables.
No bed warmer, but we have a bed warmer expert. He's going to get you a new one.
Yeah, they definitely made some innuendos at the end there.
He's an expert bed warmer. Wink, wink.
And then off walks the bed warmer and the tour lady.
Yeah, so that's okay, cool.
Happy ending.
Conflict resolution. She still should have been held accountable for trapping someone as a bed warmer.
You know, I think you should write a letter to Bewitched.
Yeah.
Point out all their plot holes.
Letter to the editor. Put that on a blog post.
So next episode is Darren on a Pedestal. And this one was kind of fun. So we spent most of our time outside of Salem and up just a couple towns north in Gloucester, Massachusetts.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's called the Salem Saga, but it's maybe like the New England
Yeah. It definitely branches out. They don't spend the entire time in Salem.
Yeah.
This one's very heavy on the Fisherman's Memorial. Okay. So if you ever have been to Gloucester, Massachusetts, or you know anything about Massachusetts landmarks, because this one is pretty significant, there's a Fisherman's Memorial right on the boardwalk in Gloucester. It's to all of the men and women who have lost their lives at sea for I think it was put up in the 20s. Don't quote me on that, but it's a pretty significant piece of Gloucester history.
Yeah. And you were telling me something about a coin.
Oh yeah. So I know just a teeny tiny bit about the Gloucester Memorial because I did a stint at the Lowell National Historic Park, and one of the individuals who I was working with, she had worked on a project for school where she was trying. Do you remember when they were doing quarters?
Yeah, all the state quarters.
Yeah, the state quarters. Well, they started doing national parks quarters. Yeah, for each state.
Yeah.
So each state did it differently, but Massachusetts put it up to a vote.
And Lowell.
So many people, the vast majority, voted for the Fisherman's Memorial in Gloucester.
But that's not.
But it's not a national park. So they weren't able. It was even announced as the winner. But then they had to backtrack and be like, no, it has to be a national park. Oh. And the Lowell National Historical Park was the runner-up. And so it automatically went to them by default. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was a huge difference. People were obsessed with the statue, and there was a huge outcry when they didn't get the coin.
I don't blame them. That's I had no idea. That's crazy. So instead of going with fishing, we went with textiles.
Yeah, and mills.
I guess is, par for Massachusetts.
Shout out to Lowell National Historic Park. Yeah. Go up there. It's kind of cool.
So what probably most people who voted for the statue don't know is that in Bewitched, it was actually removed.
Momentarily?
Yeah. Made sentient and replaced with Darren, Samantha's husband.
So the statue literally comes alive.
That was her cousin. Again, her meddlesome... Serena, her meddlesome cousin who does this again. And again, I'm sitting here going, you can just fully animate a statue and make this mortal who's...
Poor Darren.
Yeah, right. Just turn it. And he would have been stuck there. And of course, she's the bed warmer culprit. So she could have just left him there for 300 years and it would have been fine.
Gosh,
yeah.
Totally outrageous.
I don't understand. I'm upset.
You know what I loved about Serena in that episode is they go to Hammond Castle. Yes. Which is another...
I've forgotten.
Yeah, another spotlight in Gloucester. And she claims to have put it there. She's like, oh...
I just needed somewhere to stay.
I needed some Salem up here.
Okay. And they go out to dinner.
They visit the Gloucester House Restaurant, which is still standing.
I don't think I've been there.
I have not. So I think we should go.
Do you want to go?
Yeah. And I want to be those people to specifically request to sit where Samantha sat.
Can we be super touristy and wear our witch hats and go up and be
no. No.
Oh, come on.
Sure.
Yes. We're going to be those people. So they go up, they have their dinner. There's this big business meeting that's going on, right? Mm-hmm. That gets resolved, and then we get Serena to turn Darren back into a person because, again, getting back to this concept is only the person who does the magic can undo the spell.
Very tricky.
Which must suck. As Samantha.
What if the witch dies?
Right?
Does
what
the
if there was some
spell
tragedy?
Just
dissipate?
Go away?
I don't know.
Are they trapped like that forever?
Samantha's in there. She's looking at the statue. She's like, oh, haha, that's my husband. And she's just like, you're not going to... Okay, fine, whatever.
And then we move on. Ooh, we're going outside of Salem once again.
Sort of. It was a little back and forth.
Yeah. Paul Revere rides again.
Ooh, the midnight ride of Paul Revere, which didn't...
There's a rhyme, right?
Yeah.
Say it. Can you say it for me?
Listen closely and you shall hear. I think it's listen closely, you shall hear the midnight ride of Paul Revere.
Oh, very nice.
And which is only famous, of course, because his name rhymed in the poem, and he was one of 3 riders, and he didn't actually successfully make the ride. And if I got any of that little historical tidbit wrong, I'm sorry, that was just off my head. So I actually really enjoyed this episode from a storytelling perspective. So they are in Salem. Darren still has to do work. His bosses come up to have a advertising meeting with a British company who's importing stuff from England into America. And they use this hook of Paul Revere as the British are coming, as the advertising logo to the British imports are coming into Boston through the advertising agency. Of course, Darren doesn't actually come up with this idea. It's mostly Samantha, because she accidentally has her nanny transport Paul Revere from the Revolutionary War
to modern day Salem.
Which again, whatever you want to do with magic, it's fine. But again, from a storytelling, I was like, this is really cool. And then we're also sort of, I don't want to say shoehorning, but then we're getting into this New England. We've got Salem, we've got Gloucester, we've got Boston, Revolutionary War history, fishing history. And I'm looking at this being like, that's Salem.
Yeah. I love that they brought in, it was a very quick mention, but they talk about the Sons of Liberty. And like, if you've been to Salem and you've eaten at my favorite place, Red Sandwich Shop, I think I'm going to try to plug them like every episode.
Better start getting free meal. We'll go. And yeah.
So this is my goal for us in the future. If this is successful enough, I want to make it on to the placemat at Red's.
Okay.
It's like a dream of mine.
We can make that happen. Salem Historical Tour is on there. I think Emporium 32 was on there.
Yep.
Gallows Hill was on there.
Yeah.
But here, and I don't know how
Bora's on there now.
I don't know how well you've looked at the menu. Yeah. And I don't know if it's still there. It's been a little while. But the owner of Gallows Hill, and this is totally off subject, so my apologies, Eric Rodneiser, he has a square on there that just says Eric Eats Here.
Does he really?
Yeah, he did.
Did he pay for that?
Yeah.
Why? Just cut?
Have you met the guy?
Not yet.
Okay, he's that's exactly.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Does it say Gallows Hill or anything on it?
He has another one for Gallows Hill.
But he specifically
just got one.
Oh my God.
That says Eric Eats Here. Yeah.
That one's gonna be hard to beat.
Yeah, right? It's like every time I'm like, what are you doing, dude?
Well, anyway, so
okay,
Red's.
okay.
Yeah. So Red's. Favorite place to get breakfast. Great portions, amazing staff, but it's also one of our homes from the 1600s. So it used to be the London Coffee House where the Sons of Liberty met to conspire against the king. And
down with the crown.
Yeah. So how can you not, mention that when you're talking Paul Revere?
So they really did sort of their research when it comes to we're in Salem. We have other New England things to hit. We hit Boston, we hit Gloucester, we hit fishing, we hit Revolutionary War history, and I'm hoping that they knew this, and there's no way we'll ever know, which is all tied back into Salem history as well as the trials.
Yep.
So one other thing that I liked that I thought was funny with the Paul Revere episode is they have this teapot that they're going to give to the British guy as a gift, because obviously he's British and it's tea and it's Paul Revere. But also, I was watching, I'm like, if I was British, I'm not sure I'd want an American teapot from a revolutionary. Like,
quite ironic.
Yeah, like, here's a teapot from the guy who was like, the British are coming.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but the teapot, it looked, and I'm no historical artifact expert, as though it had like a plastic handle.
Yeah, they were handling it like it was a IKEA teapot.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't think that was made in the late 1700s.
But before Paul Revere goes back, he actually clarifies that not only is it from the 1700s, but
it was his.
It was his, and he just happened to not leave his mark because he had to go give his ride.
Yeah, that he's like, oh, of course it wouldn't have my mark. This was the exact teapot I was making when I gave my midnight ride. And you're like, why didn't you put it on later?
And of course, my mind just jumped to like Paul Revere sitting there working on a teapot. Like it's
knock on the door, quick. And he's like, oh, gotta put down the teapot. And then I forgot about it till I died. Likely story.
And then we move after Paul Revere, we move back into more like Salem-centered stuff, and we get Samantha's bad day in Salem.
And it is a bad day because she's dealing with her creepy, handsy, gropey, manipulative ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Boyfriend's the wrong word.
More like a stalker.
Stalker?
Yeah.
Guy who she knew when she was a kid.
I wasn't really a huge fan of this episode. No. It was just kind of like blah.
Yeah, but it was more Salem stuff. They were eating in a restaurant. And I don't think it was Red's, but it looked like it very well could have been a restaurant in Salem. And I don't know if it is. I don't know where it was.
You should look up
Yeah.
There's got to be a list somewhere.
It's mostly because of the brick.
Yeah, so much brick.
There was brick, and you're like, if there's brick, it's got to be in Salem.
Also, this is the episode that we finally realized that Serena,
the cousin, she's been in a few episodes. She has this black hair, and she's way more sort
kind
of
of quirky,
mouthy, and weird, and whatever else.
She speaks differently too.
Yeah.
But she is Elizabeth Montgomery.
Yes.
She is the same actress who plays Samantha. And it took us episodes to even realize.
I paused it and I was like, oh my God, Samantha's Serena?
All right, so I'm going to get a little 90s on you for a minute here. I had a slight realization while watching this episode. Have you ever seen Charmed?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me happy. I didn't peg you as a Charmed fan.
I mean, I like all the weird witchy stuff, and it was on the WB.
Yeah, they ran for like 8 seasons, I believe.
I would say I've probably seen like almost all of it.
Oh, good.
But not like it would be on, right? And
yeah, it would just be on.
Yeah, so I'd like follow the story and stuff, so they probably ran it like back to back, like 2 hours.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they would
So in season 4, there's an episode where Alyssa Milano, who plays Phoebe on the show, she is engaged. She gets proposed to by her boyfriend Cole, and
he's the demon.
Yes.
Right.
Oh
okay.
my gosh,
okay.
You're making me so happy right now that you can follow along with us. So he proposes with her grandmother's wedding ring, and her grandmother has been married multiple times, like 6 times.
She was like the witch.
Yeah, they're like the matriarch.
Yeah.
Witch of the family. And so she, in order to avoid heartbreak again, avoid marrying again, she put a curse on the ring. So basically what happens is when Phoebe puts that ring on, she starts to revert back into Samantha Stevens, to the point where by the end of the episode, she's flashing black and white and she's crocheting and she doesn't recognize herself. So there's this moment, right? There's this moment where she's half Phoebe, half whatever this thing is, and she enters a room. Someone says, Phoebe. She goes, Serena? Sam. And it wasn't until this moment where we realized that Serena and Sam are the same actress.
That you realized.
That they're cousins. That's what they meant in the episode.
That's amazing. So in Charmed, there was not a throwaway, but just a little hidden Easter egg reference to the TV show Bewitched.
Yep. I loved it. I was so excited years later to discover and of course anyone watching it in the early 2000s, they probably picked up on that reference.
Did they, though?
I would think so.
Like, maybe our parents.
Yeah.
But what was the target audience of Charmed?
I feel like my mom.
Was your mom? I thought
that's the only reason
I would
why.
have thought it would have been more like 16 to 30, right?
Yeah, okay.
So that was probably lost on a lot of people.
Well, now you know.
The more you know. Now everyone knows.
So cool. Cool little aside.
Yeah. But no, I felt kind of like a bit of an idiot. Not knowing. Like, how did I not realize
Oh,
it?
yeah.
I just thought it was another actress who looked very similar to her.
I think we had to look it up, in fact, just to confirm.
I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, oh my, thank gosh for IMDb.
So for anyone who never knew,
if you want to let
Serena
us know,
is Samantha.
Yeah, we can throw a poll up somewhere.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. So that episode's done with the creepy stalker ex whatever he's done. He's weird. And we're going on to the final episode of the season, which is sort of the pinnacle of this Salem arc. It is actually called Samantha's Old Salem Trip.
And I think this is what I was looking for. This is what I expected.
I expected sort of all the episodes to
going into this.
Yeah.
Like going back to Old Salem. Like this is the moment where she actually goes back to 1692 Salem.
The trials.
When the trials are happening.
Yeah. So her nanny, which is the same one who brought Paul Revere back, seems to be a little inept. And I guess that's sort of a story arc throughout these shows. And she accidentally, instead of sending Samantha back to Salem, she sends Samantha back to Salem.
To Old Salem.
Yeah, so back in time. And I guess, again, laws of magical whatever. She doesn't have her magic. That's not really explained. And she doesn't remember anyone who hasn't been born yet. So she's now some mortal woman wandering around Salem in 1692. Her mother realizes, how do we solve the problem?
And instead of sending any of the dozens of witches at the Witches' Council back, or herself going back to save her daughter.
They'd already sent her cousin back once.
They decide to send the mortal husband, Darren.
Who she doesn't remember.
Yeah.
And has
no powers.
Yeah.
They tell him how she can get her memory back.
Yeah. Which is this weird, convoluted... We'll get that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But they expect him to just be able to do it.
Yeah, of course. Why not?
Sends him back. And then my favorite part, immediately when he shows up, comes upon a woman in some stocks. He says, "What'd you do to get in there?" She says, "I was sharp to my husband."
Ooh.
That's all? Man, these were the good old days. And all of our mouths just
we were
dropped.
like, what? You can't say that.
Yeah, in their defense, this even though there were some handsy episodes, they weren't very misogynistic.
No, this
throughout.
was the first real, and it stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
Which we really appreciate. It was the first sort of like, oh, this was filmed in the 70s, kind of, Mad Men era. But what I enjoyed about that line was that was a crime that you would have been put in the stocks for. Speaking sharply to your husband. So again, we're historical accuracy, and this episode is wrought with historical accuracies.
Yep.
Some inaccuracies, but there's a lot of good stuff in this one, which we really valued and really appreciated, which was, I think, at the end of it, one of the reasons that we really appreciated this whole story arc.
Yeah, kudos to the writers, especially on this episode in particular. They did their research on the trials.
Yeah, Darren finds Samantha. She's already in jail for being a witch. He's arrested as well. And they're now going to trial, which, by the way, is not at the courthouse, because why would you bring a trial to the courthouse? Where would you try witches?
The witch house, even though...
That's not what happened.
That's not what happened. It wouldn't have been called the witch house back then. We're going to be diving into it in one of our upcoming episodes.
Yeah.
The witch house was actually home to Judge Jonathan Corwin.
Yeah.
So he was a judge on the trials, but those trials themselves took place around the corner.
But Darren's getting yanked out of the cell, and he sort of turns to Samantha, she still doesn't have her memories back, and he's like, "Uh-oh, we got to be careful. They burn witches here."
The guard says, "No, we don't. We hang them."
Which you're like, what? That's great. We're both sitting here. We're like, oh, they got it right. They got the historical accuracy.
We were so happy.
Yeah. That was nice to see.
Putting that misconception to bed, just like they did it when they arrived in Salem. These people weren't actually witches.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the trial.
So they're putting her on trial, and they're sort of doing it very similar to what would have happened back in the day.
At one point, the judge says, "You will be hanged if you do not confess." And she says, "And if I do confess, then you will also be hanged."
Obviously.
Of course, because how else are you going to do it?
Yeah. And then Darren sort of gets his way in there, and he manages to be like, "I can prove that she's a witch." And he's like, "Here, just put this coin on your head and bow down and say these magical words like 4 times," which is sort of the spell. And all of a sudden, poof, she gets her memories back.
And then she starts turning it around on the judges.
Yeah, Darren's like, "Come on, quick, we got to get out of here." And she's like,
No. She says, "I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that none of these people are witches."
Who you've already executed.
Mm-hmm.
So it would seem as though they probably put her in like that September, October time frame is sort of what they were thinking.
Right.
Because it seems as though they've already held trials. So she's now just added to the docket.
Yep.
Well, what's interesting is that they start twisting her words back on her, which is exactly what they did in the actual trials.
Right. She says, "Well, if I'm a magical creature with all these magical powers, how on earth can you imprison me and put me on trial?"
And they say, "Well, you're not going to show us your powers in front of us, because then we would know for certain that you're a witch." And we were like, wow, this is really, really well done.
Yes.
And she's like, "Oh, well." And then she just like sort of enchants her shackles.
Mm-hmm.
One of the guards grabs them, and he gets like electrocuted, and he falls off, and then she snaps her fingers and the chains fall off, and everyone in the courtroom's like,
they're terrified. This is exactly what they were hoping for.
Right? When you want to see a witch, here we go. And she's like, "Oh yeah, by the way." And she lights this trash bin on fire, transfigures herself into like this bucket, and douses the flames and turns back and sort of like smugly's like, "Yeah, see? This is what witches can do. And you didn't kill any witches. You killed innocent people."
And then he stops the trials.
Yeah. He's real. Remorse is the wrong word.
Kind of like an oops.
Yeah.
Big oops.
Yeah. And then what's not actually funny, but it's still funny. What does he say? Let's all...
forget this ever happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically what they did back in 1692
Which we talked
and 93.
about in the last episode.
Yeah, they walk away from it.
Yeah.
They try to push it under the rug. The amount of shame, I mean, these people realized after the fact that they did kill innocent folks.
And that's pretty much how that episode went.
Yeah.
And then it was over. Just like the trials were over, done. All of a sudden, poof, she's gone. And where does she go?
She comes to downtown Salem. Appears in a poof of smoke. Like literally, yeah. So
jokes aside, she poofs out the episode. Obviously, the episode ends. But then in 2005...
she is unveiled here in downtown. So brings us back to the statue. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk a little bit about the unveiling and the controversy around the unveiling because people weren't, I mean, not everyone was happy she was here. You still run into people
there's
think,
still people.
Yeah, that are still a little sour about her being here. Remember, she's this huge 9-foot bronze statue right in the middle of Lapham Park, right in the center of downtown. They unveil her on June 15th, 2005. So this is 35 years after the episodes air. This is
TV Land.
Yes, so it's put on by TV Land. They were doing other installations throughout the country, paying tribute to other TV Land shows. They originally wanted to put her down in Connecticut.
In Westport.
Right, and they said no.
Yeah, they're a little too good for a statue.
Ew.
Yeah.
So Salem, of course, Salem takes her. And, I was reading up on the unveiling and I kept seeing clouds of smoke, like poof of smoke. She appeared in a poof of smoke. And I was like, how did they do this? Like, how big was this unveiling? I finally found a video. And they actually did include smoke when they lifted the curtain off. So it's super cool. The day of, they've got about 1,000 people or so gathered. They've got a TV Land backdrop behind her, a blue blanket on top, curtain, and the little chime goes when she appears in the show. Yeah, so they had like speakers set up and everything. The curtain lifts, the little jingle sounds, and poof,
there she is.
The smoke comes up, poof, she is. It was so cool. But a minute or 2 minutes beforehand, right across the street in what it looked like what is today Rockefeller's, in one of the top windows, someone unleashed this huge white banner that just said, "Shame."
So they're protesting the TV Land statue. It's like when we say they didn't want it here, it wasn't just like murmurs. They were out there like picketing.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It was a big
crazy.
deal. From the sounds of it, the majority of folks there were very much supportive going in, but it seems like from what I was reading, it was more like the historical folks here in town, like from the historic districts. They thought that she tarnished the history.
That sort of makes sense, but at the same time, we need to focus on this reclamation of the tragedy versus this commercialization, which we talked about in the last episode a little bit. But that's where this comes to a head. Is what is that line that we walk?
Yeah, it's like, did these people even watch the episodes?
Probably
because they actually have some good points in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, folks said that it trivialized the trials and the deaths of those innocent people. You got to remember the Witch Trials Memorial is just around the corner, and for some, it seemed disrespectful.
I understand.
Some called it a distortion of our history. Some went even as far as to say, we don't make fun of the Holocaust. So there were some emotions
a little
raging.
Extreme. So that's interesting that they get so upset. And so I think I wasn't here in 2005, so I can't speak to what the tone is. The tone today is much, much different. Mm-hmm. There's people who disagree with that, but we have all these witch stories, these witch hats, people come, they talk about this, and then hopefully through avenues like what we're doing, they learn more. But a lot of people don't realize that those doors are there until they get here. So we provide those avenues. They just have to get here first. And if something like the Samantha statue draws them here, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah, but on the flip side, I could also see if someone is super into history and old Salem and they come up upon a statue of Elizabeth Montgomery, they might think it's a little kitschy. Actually, one guy said, new heights of tacky.
Well, No.
And someone
Get
also
over
said,
it.
Roger Conant is crying.
Oh, please. Roger Conant doesn't care. Magistrate Hathorne is crying because it's on his land.
Yes.
Roger
I
Conant
think that's
doesn't-
more
yeah.
accurate. I think that's more accurate. The mayor, when they were unveiling the statue, the mayor ended up saying, we do, in fact, have a great and rich history, and there is more than enough room for contemporary art and modern culture.
I couldn't agree more. I think that brings us to an end with all the Bewitched stuff. I'm sure we'll bring it up again. We'll talk about Samantha. We'll talk about all these things. You can't really talk about Salem a lot without. And we got a lot of stuff in the show notes for you today. We'll have some clips of the show, the opening, that unveiling video that you found. We'll have all that.
Yeah, any articles that mention the statue going up.
So take a look in the show notes. Otherwise, thanks for joining us.
In the next episode, we're going to be giving you a brief overview of tourism in Salem.
The thing that drives the city.
And our jobs.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, tell a couple of your friends.
And be sure to follow us on all the socials. We are at Salem the Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
And if you have any questions, shoot us an email. hello@Salem the Podcast.
And if you're visiting Salem, be sure to take a tour with either Jeffrey or myself. Links to both of those are in the show notes.
Thanks for listening.
See you later.